Relax as this soft Bible story slowly unfolds, revealing the hidden Dagger story of King Eglon in a calm, peaceful, and sleep-friendly way. Travel quietly through ancient Israel, follow Ehud's obedient mission, and discover how God's guidance moved in silence and stillness. This soothing Bible sleep story is designed to relax your mind, deepen reflection, and gently carry you through every moment until the final calm ending, where freedom returns and rest settles in. Long ago, in the land of Israel, the hills and valleys still breathed with a memory of promise, yet a quiet heaviness rested over the people. The fields were familiar, the olive trees still twisted gently toward the sky, and the Jordan continued its slow and faithful flow. Life had not stopped, but it had slowed, as though the land itself moved under a weight that could not be seen but was always felt. For many years, Israel lived under the rule of Moab. King Eglon of Moab held authority over the region, and his power reached across the plains near the Jordan. His presence was not always loud, yet it was constant, shaping the rhythm of daily life. Tribute was required, and each season the people gathered their goods with care, knowing that part of their labor no longer remained with them. Grain, oil, and livestock were measured out quietly, hands steady, voices low. The villages of Israel continued their routines. At dawn, families rose as the light spread softly across the hills. Women drew water from wells worn smooth by generations of hands. Men walked the edges of their fields, checking the soil, tending vines, and guiding animals with practiced calm. Children played near doorways, their laughter gentle, taught early to stay close and speak softly. Life moved forward, but always with an awareness that it was being watched from afar. Moabite officials traveled the roads at certain times of the year. Their arrival was never sudden, yet it was never welcome. The sound of footsteps or the sight of unfamiliar garments brought a quiet stillness to the air. The people greeted them with respectful silence, offering what was required, then watching as they departed along the dusty paths that led back toward the east. When the roads emptied again, Israel returned to its tasks, though the weight lingered. Despite the oppression, the land itself remained beautiful. The breeze still passed through barley fields, causing them to sway like a gentle sea. Fig trees offered shade in the heat of the afternoon. At night, lamps glowed softly in small homes, casting warm light upon clay walls. Families gathered to eat simple meals, sharing bread and stories in hushed tones. In these moments, peace still found a place, even beneath foreign rule. Yet beneath the calm surface, hearts remembered something more. Elders spoke quietly of earlier days, when Israel walked closely with the Lord, when judges rose to lead with wisdom and strength. These stories were not told with bitterness, but with longing. They reminded the people that their God had not changed, even if their circumstances had. In private moments, prayers were whispered, not shouted, not demanded, but offered gently, like incense rising unseen. In fields, at wells, and beside hearth fires, voices turned toward the God of their fathers. They spoke of weariness and hope in the same breath. They asked for mercy, for guidance, for a return to peace that did not depend on the favor of another king. The oppression under Moab did not strip Israel of faith, but it tested patience. Days passed quietly, marked by work and rest, sunrise and sunset. Seasons changed as they always had, yet each year under Eglon's rule felt longer than the last. The people learned endurance, moving through life with care and restraint, holding on to trust even when answers seemed distant. Along the Jordan, where the land flattened and the air grew warmer, Moab's influence felt strongest. The city of palms stood as a reminder of control and authority. Yet even there, Israel's God was not absent. Though unseen, his presence rested gently among the people, listening to every quiet prayer and every unspoken sigh. Children grew into adulthood during these years, learning both the beauty of the land and the burden of submission. Parents taught them not only how to work the soil and tend the home, but also how to remember who they were. They spoke of covenant and promise, not as distant tales, but as truths that still lived beneath the surface of their days. In this slow and steady time, nothing appeared to change. No trumpet sounded, no sudden deliverance arrived. Yet beneath the stillness, something was already being prepared. The land waited, the people waited, and the Lord listened. The quiet heaviness that rested over Israel was not the end of the story, but the gentle beginning of a turning that would come in its proper time. Across the Jordan, beyond the quiet waiting of Israel, King Eglon ruled from a place shaped by comfort and order. He was king of Moab, a nation settled east of the river, where the land opened into plains and warm air lingered through much of the year. His authority extended calmly, firmly, and without haste, reaching westward into the territory he had claimed. Eglon governed from the city known as the City of Palms, a fertile place near the Jordan, rich with shade and water. Palm trees rose tall there, their leaves whispering softly in the breeze. The ground was well watered, and gardens flourished under careful tending. It was a place of abundance, chosen wisely for rest and rule. Within this city stood Eglon's palace, built not for haste or struggle, but for ease. Its walls were thick and steady, protecting wide rooms cooled by stone and shadow. Light entered gently through open spaces, softened by curtains and careful design. The sounds within were muted, footsteps slow, voices low, as though everything moved at the pace set by the king himself. Eglon lived surrounded by comfort. Servants attended to daily needs with quiet precision, bringing food, water, and reports from beyond the palace walls. Meals were unhurried, prepared with care and enjoyed without interruption. Cushioned seats and elevated chambers offered rest during the warm hours of the day, and the air within remained still and calm. The king himself was a man of great size, a detail noted in Scripture without mockery or cruelty. His presence filled a room, and his movements were deliberate rather than swift. He ruled not by sudden bursts of action, but through steady control and established authority. Those who approached him did so respectfully, accustomed to his manner and the quiet certainty of his position. From his seat of rule, Eglon received tribute from Israel year after year. This arrangement had become routine, woven into the rhythm of seasons. Messengers came and went. Goods were counted, records kept, and duties fulfilled with formality. Nothing about the process felt urgent. It was simply how things were. The palace reflected this sense of settled order. There was no constant noise of preparation for war, no restless movement of soldiers rushing through halls. Instead, guards stood watch in silence, their presence steady rather than imposing. Doors opened and closed softly. Time seemed to stretch gently within those walls. Eglon's rule over Israel did not depend on daily presence or harsh enforcement. Distance and routine maintained control. The tribute reminded the people of who ruled, and the palace stood as a quiet symbol of that authority. From the city of palms, power flowed outward without strain. Inside his upper rooms, Eglon often withdrew from the busyness of court life. These chambers were designed for privacy and stillness, lifted above the ground where air moved more freely. There, the noise of the city faded, leaving only distant sounds carried by the wind. It was a place suited to rest, reflection, and solitude. The king trusted the order he had established. His officials managed affairs, his guards kept watch, and the rhythms of rule continued without interruption. There was little reason, it seemed, to expect change. The years of dominance had passed quietly, reinforcing a sense of permanence. Yet even within this calm structure, unseen threads were forming. The same stillness that marked Eglon's palace also created spaces where moments could pass unnoticed. Silence, after all, can both preserve and conceal. The quiet halls held more than comfort. They held waiting. As the sun crossed the sky above the city of palms and shadows shifted along palace walls, Eglon remained unaware of how near change had drawn. His rule continued in ease, shaped by confidence and habit, resting within walls built for peace and privacy, as the story moved gently forward. Amid the steady rhythm of Moabite rule, the people of Israel continued their days with quiet diligence, yet in the hearts of many there stirred a gentle longing for relief. Life carried on in fields, homes, and villages, yet beneath the surface there was a soft, persistent hope that whispered in every task and every prayer. The land seemed to breathe with patience, and so too did its people. Families rose each morning, tending their flocks, harvesting grain, and preparing simple meals. Their hands moved steadily, guiding animals, sowing seeds, and mending worn tools. Yet in these ordinary motions, hearts often lifted in quiet reflection, remembering the God of their ancestors who had walked with their forefathers through deserts and across rivers. In these moments, Israel's faith was a gentle undercurrent, flowing beneath the ordinary patterns of daily life. Prayers began in whispered tones, offered at dawn beside still waters, in olive groves, and near hearth fires as the soft warmth of morning spread through their homes. These prayers were not loud cries, but calm words carried in hope. Mothers spoke of protection and provision. Fathers reflected on guidance and courage. Children, taught early in the ways of their people, lifted soft words to the heavens, learning patience and trust. The elders gathered in quiet corners of villages, sharing memories of judges and leaders who had once delivered the people from harm. They spoke of God's faithfulness, recounting tales of distant victories, not to stir excitement, but to plant a sense of calm assurance. Their stories reminded the young and the old alike that even under oppression, their God remained present, attentive to each gentle plea. Evenings brought a soft pause to the day. The light dimmed across the hills, and a hush settled over the land. Families sat together in humble homes, listening to the wind rustle through the trees and the Jordan flowing slowly along its course. These moments were quiet, almost sacred. words of gratitude mingled with soft hopes for deliverance, creating a calm rhythm of reflection that filled the spaces between routine. In fields and along narrow roads, the people continued their work with care. Every planted seed, every tended vine, every measured portion of grain was carried out with awareness of God's watchful presence. They labored not with resentment, but with patience, each action a subtle expression of hope that the Creator would one day restore freedom to the land. Even under the shadow of tribute and foreign oversight, Israel found ways to remain gentle with one another. Conversations were soft, gestures considerate, and the bonds of family and community strengthened in quiet solidarity. Encouragement was offered in small words, smiles, and shared meals, sustaining hearts weary of waiting. At night, when the land grew still and stars filled the sky like scattered lights of promise, prayers deepened. People lifted thoughts of longing, gratitude, and quiet desire for guidance. The sound of sleep settling over homes was accompanied by the inner murmur of trust and endurance. Each heartbeat, each breath, carried a silent message. We wait with hope, and we remain faithful. The children learned from this gentle persistence. They watched their parents move through the days with steady hands and patient eyes, and they began to understand the quiet power of trust. In their play and laughter, in their simple acts of care for one another, they reflected the enduring spirit of their people. Through the seasons, the land changed as it always had. Rain fell softly on hills and valleys. Olive trees bent with the weight of their fruit. The sun rose and set over fields and rivers with predictable calm. In every turning of the day, the people's quiet prayers wove together with the rhythms of nature, each motion a reminder that patience and hope endured even under the heaviest rule. Israel's cry for help was not loud or demanding, but persistent and tender. It rose in soft whispers, in measured acts of care, and in steady faith that God's presence had not abandoned them. Even as the years moved forward and the palace of Moab stood in quiet authority, the people's hearts remained attentive and ready for guidance. Every act of daily life became a small offering, a prayer of endurance and trust. The fields, the homes, and the rivers all seemed to hold these silent petitions, carrying them forward gently. In the hush of the evening, in the slow passage of work and rest, Israel's quiet cry for help persisted, wrapped in patience, sustained by hope, and held gently in the care of the God who watched without haste. Among the people of Israel there lived a man named Ehud, known for his steady mind and careful ways. He was not loud or boastful, nor did he seek attention or recognition. His presence was calm, measured, and quietly assured, a subtle strength that rested easily within him. From a young age he had learned to move with thoughtfulness, to weigh his choices with care, and to act with patience, allowing wisdom to guide his steps rather than impulse. Ehud carried himself with a gentle confidence, one that did not demand notice but could not be overlooked. He understood the rhythms of life, the movements of the land, and the hearts of the people among whom he lived. His eyes observed carefully, noticing what others might miss. In his quiet moments, he reflected on the needs of his community, the hardships they endured, and the ways in which guidance and courage could bring relief without haste or spectacle. The land of Israel had whispered its prayers for deliverance for many years, and God's presence had rested upon Ehud in a subtle but constant way. There was a sense of calling that he carried within him, a gentle awareness that he had been entrusted with purpose. It was not a purpose of glory or acclaim, but of careful service, of acting at the right moment with precision and trust. His faith was steady, a soft flame that burned quietly yet clearly within his heart, guiding every decision he made. Ehud's uniqueness lay in the combination of thoughtfulness and courage. He moved through life with care, yet he possessed the inner strength to act when required. He was attuned to the quiet stirrings of God's guidance, listening in moments of stillness and responding with calm determination. Those who met him would notice the steadiness of his voice, the clarity of his gaze, and the sense that he weighed every word and every movement with intention. Even among his own people, Ehud stood apart, not because of boastfulness or pride, but because of a careful discernment that allowed him to see beyond immediate circumstances. While others acted out of urgency or fear, he considered the long view, balancing patience with readiness. This calm understanding made him a source of quiet reassurance to those around him, a reminder that wisdom and faith could coexist in action. In his home, he spent hours in reflection, seeking guidance from God in silent conversation. He thought about the land, the people, and the subtle ways in which change could come without violence or disruption beyond necessity. Every choice he considered was rooted in faith and careful observation. He understood that timing, patience, and trust were as essential as courage and action. Ehud's appearance mirrored his inner steadiness. He carried himself with ease, neither hurried nor hesitant. His movements were precise, deliberate, and calm, whether tending to daily work, travelling between villages, or speaking with neighbours. There was a quiet dignity in his presence, one that inspired trust without demanding it, a natural authority that came from reflection rather than force. Those who knew him spoke of his wisdom softly, without exaggeration. They noticed the way he seemed to sense the undercurrents of events, the subtle shifts in mood and circumstance that others might overlook. He listened more than he spoke, considered more than he acted, and trusted more than he feared. In every interaction, there was a calm assurance that spoke of guidance beyond his own understanding, a steady hand that rested upon the people he served. Even in moments of solitude, Ehud was aware of the weight upon his land and the quiet longing of his people. He walked through fields and along hillsides, noting the flow of the river, the sway of trees, and the lives of families moving carefully through each day. In these quiet walks, he reflected on the responsibility resting upon him and the subtle movements of God that prepared the way for what was to come. The gentle confidence that Ehud carried was never loud or imposing. It was the soft assurance of one who knew the right path would become clear, and that patient, faithful action would bring relief in its proper time. God's guidance rested upon him quietly, like a soft hand upon his shoulder, steadying and encouraging without rush or insistence. In Ehud, the people of Israel had a figure of hope not because of force or spectacle, but because of wisdom, faith, and the quiet readiness to act when the time was right. His calm presence was a living reminder that courage could be gentle, strength could be measured, and guidance from above could shape the course of a people without noise or haste. Even in ordinary moments of his days, there was a sense of purpose woven into Ehud's careful routines. Whether tending to work, moving among neighbours, or spending hours in reflection, each act carried the subtle weight of preparation. Patience and observation were his companions, and in the stillness of his heart, he listened for the direction that would one day bring change to the land. Ehud's life, though unassuming to many, was already touched by the hand of God. He walked quietly among his people, observing, reflecting, and preparing, embodying the calm strength that would be needed to answer the silent prayers of Israel in a moment that had been quietly ordained. In the quiet of his home, Ehud took careful steps to prepare for what lay ahead. Among his possessions there was a small blade, one that he handled with respect and precision. It was not a tool for boastfulness, nor for reckless action. In his hands it became a symbol of responsibility, obedience, and careful attention to God's guidance. He examined it slowly, noting the balance, the smooth surface of the handle, and the sharpness that had been tempered over time. Every movement was deliberate, each gesture measured and intentional. He cleaned the blade with soft cloths, attending to it as one might tend a treasured instrument of purpose. The metal caught the light gently, reflecting a quiet gleam that seemed almost like a whisper of what was to come. Ehud's fingers traced its edges not with haste, but with reverence, recognizing that this object represented more than himself. It represented careful action aligned with divine direction. Once the dagger was prepared, he concealed it with thoughtfulness. He wrapped it in soft leather, securing it in a way that it would remain close yet hidden, ready only for the appointed moment. There was a stillness in the act, a silent acknowledgment that timing and obedience were essential. The concealment was not a trick, but a careful alignment with the plan that God had placed before him. Ehud paused often, reflecting on the path ahead. In these moments, the quiet of the room seemed to settle around him, the soft light of the morning or afternoon casting gentle shadows across the floor. His breathing was calm, steady, mirroring the rhythm of the day outside, where wind moved through olive trees and the distant hills seemed unchanging. There was no hurry in him, no anxiety, only the measured patience of one who understood that preparation itself carried significance. The blade, though sharp, was treated as a tool of duty rather than threat. Ehud considered it carefully, understanding its role not in violence for its own sake, but in the fulfillment of God's quiet plan. It represented courage, obedience, and the careful attention to what was just and necessary. Every fold of the leather, every adjustment to its concealment, became part of a ritual of readiness, a reflection of his thoughtful nature and steady heart. He arranged his garments to ensure that the dagger would remain hidden as he moved. Layers of fabric, belts, and folds were aligned with precision, each placement deliberate. It was not a hurried action, but a calm orchestration of readiness. Ehud's movements were smooth and unhurried, each step a careful preparation of body and mind for what would soon be required. Throughout this process, he maintained a soft focus on the divine guidance that had settled upon him. There was a sense of quiet partnership in his actions, a gentle listening to a direction that was not his own, yet one he had learned to trust completely. Every adjustment, every careful placement of the blade, was an expression of his alignment with that guidance, a peaceful offering of obedience. Even as he worked, Ehud's thoughts remained composed. He envisioned the coming day with clarity, not in terms of fear or excitement, but as a series of deliberate steps, each taken with respect and careful thought. The act of preparing the dagger became an exercise in mindfulness, an opportunity to align heart, mind, and purpose with what had been entrusted to him. The quiet room seemed to reflect his inner calm. Shadows shifted softly on the walls, the air moved gently through open windows, and light fell in steady patterns across the floor. In this serene space, the act of preparation was both practical and symbolic, a reminder that readiness and obedience can exist in harmony without haste or tension. Ehud set the dagger aside once it was properly prepared, glancing at it with a silent acknowledgment of its significance. It was no longer merely a piece of metal. It had become a companion in thought, a symbol of careful planning, and a quiet instrument of faith. Every line, every curve, every weight had been attended to with patience and reverence. He touched it once more, letting his hand rest gently upon the wrapped blade. In that moment there was stillness, a connection to the purpose that lay before him. It was a pause filled not with worry, but with a calm understanding of responsibility and trust. The hidden dagger was ready, yet the power it carried was not in force alone, but in the quiet alignment of action with guidance, courage with patience, and obedience with thoughtfulness. Every movement in this preparation reflected the steadiness of Ehud's heart. The room remained tranquil, filled with soft light and the gentle hum of life beyond the walls. There was no urgency, no loud announcement, only the quiet presence of readiness, the careful tending of an instrument that would serve a purpose larger than himself, guided by the gentle hand of God. In the calm of these moments, Ehud's mind and body became synchronized with intention. The dagger, hidden and steady, mirrored the quiet patience of the land, the thoughtful endurance of the people, and the serene courage of the man chosen for this moment. The act of preparation itself was a prayer in motion, a slow, deliberate offering of trust, focus, and readiness. Ehud left his home with calm steps, moving quietly along the paths that led toward the city where King Eglon ruled. The sun hung gently above the hills, casting a warm, golden light over the fields and villages. Olive trees swayed softly in the breeze, their leaves whispering faintly, as if offering a gentle accompaniment to his journey. The air carried the faint scent of earth and stone, grounding each step he took with peaceful presence. The road to the palace was familiar, yet always remarkable in its quiet beauty. Small homes lined the path, their clay walls glowing softly in the sunlight. Courtyards were filled with simple greenery, and the distant sound of flowing water from wells added a soft rhythm to the air. Animals moved slowly through fields and pastures, their steps measured and unhurried. The ordinary life of the land continued gently, each detail a subtle reminder of the quiet patience that had long marked these days. Stone walls began to rise as Ehud approached the city's center, smooth and sun-warmed, strong and steady. The gates were wide and inviting in appearance, though guarded with calm vigilance. Their movement opened slowly, creaking faintly against iron hinges, and Ehud's steps echoed softly against the cobblestones. Each sound was measured, not harsh or jarring, blending into the natural hum of the city around him. Within the palace grounds, the pathways curved gently between gardens and courtyards. Flowers and shrubs offered soft color and fragrance, and small fountains whispered over polished stone basins. The light, filtered through leaves and walls, created a tranquil atmosphere, where shadows and sun merged in calm patterns. Birds moved quietly among the trees, their calls distant and gentle, adding a layer of serene music to the morning. The palace itself rose above the surrounding structures with quiet authority. Its walls were smooth, pale stone warmed by the sun, and windows allowed shafts of gentle light to pass through into cool inner chambers. Courtyards led to broad halls lined with pillars, their surfaces reflecting warmth from the outside air. Each corridor carried a soft echo of footsteps, the sound stretching lightly across polished floors. The architecture invited movement that was slow, considered, and unhurried. Ehud moved along the halls with calm assurance. The soft echo of his steps against stone seemed almost musical, blending with a distant murmur of palace life. Doors opened smoothly into rooms where attendants moved quietly, their actions deliberate and careful. Even the distant voices were gentle, low in tone, carrying words that floated like soft notes across the cool air. There was no rush, no urgency, only a steady unfolding of the day within these walls. Light shifted as it traveled across the hallways, spilling through open windows and archways. The warmth of the sun mixed with the cool shadowed stone, creating a soothing contrast that guided Ehud forward. Each turn of a corner, each small rise of a step, was accompanied by the gentle rhythm of awareness, as if the palace itself had a pulse aligned with patience and thoughtfulness. As he neared the inner chambers, the atmosphere became even quieter. The walls absorbed sound, leaving only the subtle echo of his presence. Pillars and archways cast gentle patterns on the floor, creating a calm interplay of light and shadow. The air carried the faint scent of oils and incense, delicate and grounding, enhancing the sense of serene preparation in the palace. Ehud's pace never hurried. Each movement was intentional, a slow, careful alignment of body and mind with purpose. The palace was not intimidating. It was a place of calm order, where every step could be noticed but never hurried. He passed rooms where tapestries softened the stone walls and benches offered rest in quiet corners. The stillness was pervasive, a gentle companion to the rhythm of his journey. In the distance, the inner rooms of the palace awaited, warm with sunlight and shadow, echoing softly with hushed voices and quiet movements. Ehud continued steadily, the hidden dagger safely concealed, his mind focused yet at ease. The journey itself became part of preparation, a slow passage through a world of stone, light, and gentle echoes, where every detail, walls, corridors, gardens, and air, supported the calm readiness that carried him forward. Ehud entered the outer chamber of King Eglon's palace with careful steps, his movements measured and calm. The room was broad, its high ceilings catching the warm light that streamed gently through windows. Stone pillars lined the space, their surfaces smooth and pale, and the soft shadows they cast mingled with the glow of the afternoon sun. The air held a quiet warmth, carrying faint hints of incense and the subtle scent of polished wood. Every detail contributed to a sense of serene order, as though the palace itself encouraged calm and thoughtful action. At the center of the room, King Eglon sat upon a raised seat, a figure of still authority. He was dressed in garments of soft, warm colors, and his posture was composed, dignified, and measured. Attendants lingered nearby, standing in quiet readiness, moving only when necessary. The presence of the king was commanding yet gentle, a steady point in the still atmosphere of the hall. Ehud approached with the tribute in his hands. His steps were slow and deliberate, each one reflecting thoughtfulness and respect. The tribute was carefully arranged, a quiet acknowledgment of the customs that had long been observed. Grain and oil, gathered from the land, were presented with gentle hands, a soft offering that spoke of obedience and care. He lowered his gaze respectfully as he stepped closer, aware of the space and the quiet rhythm of the room. The king's eyes lifted, noticing Ehud's approach. There was no rush in the glance, only the calm observation of a ruler accustomed to receiving offerings. Ehud spoke softly, his voice even and steady, presenting the tribute with words chosen for courtesy and clarity. "From the people of Israel, this is given according to what has been required," he said, each syllable flowing gently, without sharpness or urgency. Eglon's attendants moved quietly to receive portions of the tribute, placing them with care on low tables and soft mats. The movements of everyone in the room were deliberate, unhurried, and precise. The sound of cloth brushing stone and the faint clink of vessels was almost musical in its subtlety, a soft rhythm that matched the calm air of the hall. The king responded with measured acknowledgment. His voice, when he spoke, was low and even, carrying authority without tension. "It is received," he said simply, a brief statement that set the pace for the interaction. Ehud inclined his head slightly, a gesture of quiet respect, and allowed the items to be settled in their proper place. Every movement was thoughtful, every step intentional, reflecting the careful attention he carried in both heart and mind. Throughout the meeting, Ehud remained composed, his hidden dagger concealed but never intruding on his posture or presence. His focus was not on the object he carried, but on the careful fulfillment of his duty, the presentation of what was required, and the maintenance of calm in the room. He observed the king's reactions with subtle attention, noting the gentle shifts of expression and the steady rhythm of his breathing. Time moved slowly in the chamber. Conversations were minimal, carried in soft tones, and every action was deliberate. Even the smallest gesture, placing a vessel, adjusting a mat, bowing slightly, was done with unhurried precision. The space felt suspended, a gentle bubble of quiet attention where careful action and respect guided every movement. Ehud completed the presentation and stepped back slowly, hands relaxed at his sides, posture steady. The tribute had been offered with care and obedience, and the king had received it with quiet acknowledgment. In this moment, the chamber was filled with a calm balance, the soft interplay of movement, light, and shadow sustaining a gentle atmosphere of patience, respect, and thoughtful order. After the tribute had been received and placed with care, Ehud lingered for a moment, his posture composed and steady. The light in the hall softened as it shifted through the high windows, and the gentle shadows of the pillars stretched across the smooth stone floor. The air held a quiet stillness, only punctuated by the faint rustle of cloth and the soft, measured steps of attendants moving calmly through the room. Ehud spoke then, his voice low and even, carrying a tone of respect and thoughtful intent. "May I have a private word with the king?" he asked, the words flowing gently without urgency. The request was soft, careful, and deliberate, yet it carried the weight of intention. Those nearby responded with silent understanding, bowing lightly and withdrawing with quiet steps. Their movement created a hush in the hall, a gentle clearing of space that seemed to slow the very rhythm of the room. The attendants receded, leaving only the soft echo of footsteps fading along the polished stone. The walls absorbed the sounds of departure, and a calm stillness settled over the chamber. The subtle sense of incense and warm stone filled the quiet air, lending a gentle depth to the silence. Every detail, the filtered sunlight, the soft shadows, the muted colors of tapestries and pillars, combined to create an atmosphere of peace and careful anticipation. Eglon regarded Ehud with composed attention. His posture remained steady, his breathing even. There was no rush, no alarm in his expression, only the quiet acknowledgment of the request. The pause that followed was serene, filled with an almost tangible calm. The space between them stretched gently, allowing for reflection and thought, each moment quiet and measured. Ehud's movements were minimal, deliberate, and respectful. He shifted slightly, aligning himself so that his attention remained fully on the king, and his presence added to the stillness rather than disturbing it. There was a rhythm to the room now, subtle and unhurried, where each breath, each glance, each soft movement contributed to a shared sense of quiet awareness. The palace, usually filled with the soft hum of activity, now seemed to hold its own breath. Light danced faintly across the stone floor, and the faint scent of oils lingered in the air. The walls and pillars seemed to echo the gentle hush, amplifying the quiet rather than diminishing it. Every sound, every movement, became part of a careful and peaceful pause, a private space unfolding slowly within the larger expanse of the palace. Ehud remained composed, his hands relaxed, his gaze steady yet gentle. The concealed dagger rested unnoticed, a silent presence beneath his garments, while the weight of patience and purpose filled the space. There was no hurry, only the calm understanding that this private moment had been granted at the right time, and that every breath and movement aligned with thoughtful intention. In this hushed interval, the world outside the chamber faded into soft background. The distant noises of the city, the subtle shift of sunlight, and the quiet murmur of air through open windows all contributed to a tranquil cocoon. Ehud and the king shared a calm pause, the kind that allows the mind to settle and the spirit to align, a private space where quiet reflection and gentle attention prevailed. Ehud remained before the king in quiet stillness, the air between them soft and unhurried. The shadows shifted gently across the stone floor, and the warmth of sunlight filtered through the high windows, creating a calm, steady glow that seemed to settle over the room. In this serene pause, Ehud allowed his mind to focus fully, drawing inward to the sense of guidance that had rested upon him for many days. With measured words, he began to speak, his voice low and even, carrying both respect and a gentle authority. "The Lord has sent me with a message for you," he said, each syllable deliberate and calm. There was no urgency in his tone, only a quiet clarity that suggested patience, care, and the soft power of divine direction. The words themselves moved slowly through the room, blending with the stillness that already filled the chamber. King Eglon listened, his gaze steady and attentive, the soft light highlighting the calm lines of his face. He did not interrupt, did not rise suddenly, but received the statement with measured thought. The space remained hushed, the echoes of prior movement settling into gentle silence. In the quiet, every pause seemed meaningful, every breath deliberate, creating an atmosphere of reflective attention. Ehud's expression reflected careful consideration and obedience. He was not speaking for his own purpose, but carrying a message entrusted to him from a higher presence. The rhythm of his words and the gentleness of his delivery allowed the moment to remain subdued, a subtle unfolding of intention rather than a loud proclamation. The calm tone underscored that this was a time for focus, reflection, and quiet understanding. The chamber itself seemed to acknowledge the stillness. Light touched the walls and floors with softness, the pillars casting slow, elongated shadows. Even the faintest sounds, the whisper of air through open windows, the soft movement of fabrics, were absorbed into the gentle rhythm of the moment. There was a natural hush that deepened the significance of Ehud's words without requiring loudness or dramatics. Each phrase carried weight, but weight in a quiet, measured way. Ehud's careful delivery, aligned with his faith and the subtle guidance he had received, created a sense of calm importance. The message was clear in its purpose, yet restrained in its unfolding, allowing the room itself to hold the moment in contemplative balance. Eglon's posture remained relaxed, his hands resting easily, his breathing steady. There was no tension, only the attentive stillness of one hearing words meant to be considered with thoughtfulness. The softness of the space, combined with Ehud's even voice, created an atmosphere where understanding could emerge slowly and fully, without haste. Ehud allowed pauses between phrases, soft and deliberate, giving space for thought and reflection. The act of speaking became almost meditative, each moment of quiet reinforcing the sense that this was not an ordinary conversation but a careful delivery of guidance. The hush of the room, the gentle echo of stone walls, and the interplay of light and shadow all contributed to the serene cadence of the message. In this calm and sacred interval, the focus rested not on action or spectacle, but on presence, attention, and alignment with purpose. Ehud's words were a conduit, soft and steady, a symbolic expression of divine intent. Every gesture, every measured breath, supported the quiet unfolding of meaning. The atmosphere remained gentle, as if the chamber itself had softened in reverence to the moment. The sunlight continued its slow passage across the floors, the shadows lengthened softly, and the still air held the weight of unspoken trust. Ehud's delivery was both purposeful and tranquil, a soft unfolding of guidance that carried significance while sustaining the calm, sleep-friendly rhythm of the room. A quiet stillness settled over the room after Ehud's words, as though time itself had paused to listen. The light from the windows moved gently across the stone floors, casting soft patterns on the walls, and the shadows shifted slowly with the rhythm of the day. In that calm, unhurried space, something significant began to unfold, though it passed like a whisper rather than a loud announcement. There was a subtle shift, almost imperceptible, yet it carried the weight of change. The balance in the room, once steady and familiar, now held a gentle tension of expectation. It was not loud or alarming, only quiet and deliberate, like the slow turning of a tide that will eventually reshape the shore. Every element of the chamber, the light, the air, the stillness, participated in this delicate moment, allowing it to exist without disturbance or haste. Ehud remained composed, his posture calm, his mind centered in the awareness that a decisive turning had arrived. It was not a moment of noise or spectacle, but one of careful alignment with purpose. He stood with measured confidence, attuned to the unfolding of what had been long prepared. The rhythm of his breathing and the steady presence of his hands reflected patience, restraint, and quiet readiness. King Eglon, too, seemed caught in the hush of this interval. His gaze was steady, and the usual motion of the palace, soft footsteps, distant voices, muted movement, felt suspended. The room itself appeared to absorb the weight of the moment, holding it gently so that it might pass with calm dignity. There was no hurry, no sudden disturbance, only the quiet awareness that the course of history was being redirected in a subtle, measured way. Outside the inner chamber, the palace continued its gentle rhythms. Shadows moved slowly along hallways and courtyards, and the faint whisper of wind through the gardens carried the ordinary sounds of life. These soft background details reinforced the sense that the turning that occurred within these walls was part of a larger pattern, an unfolding woven into the calm continuity of the world outside. In the silence, there was an almost imperceptible sense of completion, a gentle acknowledgment that the preparation, patience, and trust that had guided Ehud to this place had aligned perfectly. The shift was profound in its consequences, yet it passed quietly, like sunlight moving over a hilltop, its influence certain, its presence gentle, and its effect extending beyond what could immediately be observed. This was a turning that changed the direction of Israel's story. It was felt not in noise or dramatic display, but in the subtle alteration of patterns, the slow emergence of a new course, and the quiet unfolding of promise long whispered in prayer. The moment carried weight, yet remained serene, its significance lying in the calm certainty of its outcome rather than in any hurried or loud act. Ehud's presence reflected the stillness of this pivotal moment. His thoughts were attentive, steady, and centered in faith. There was no rush, no need to emphasize what had occurred, only the soft acknowledgment that history itself had shifted in a way that would ripple quietly through the land. Within the walls of the palace, the air remained calm, the light softened, and the echo of footsteps and voices subsided. The turning had taken place, carried out with the restraint and patience that had marked every step of preparation. It was a moment of profound alignment, where careful obedience and quiet courage met, and the course of the land began to move toward renewal. Ehud moved gently through the palace halls, each step careful and measured. The corridors were empty now, the soft echoes of his movement stretching slowly across the polished stone. Light from the high windows softened as the sun began its descent, casting long, warm patterns across the floors and walls. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of stone, incense, and the subtle fragrance of the gardens beyond the walls. Doors along the passageways closed quietly behind him, their soft clicks blending with a faint rustle of fabric. Each sound was absorbed by the stillness of the palace, leaving only the serene rhythm of his passage. Attendants and servants were far away now, their duties completed for the hour, and the emptiness of the halls enhanced the sense of calm that accompanied Ehud. The quiet spaces seemed to stretch and fold around him, creating a gentle cocoon of solitude. Shadows shifted slowly with the fading light, elongating across the walls, while sunlight filtered softly through the remaining windows. The interplay of warm light and muted shadow guided each step, offering subtle markers as he moved with purpose yet without haste. Passing through the inner courtyards, the gentle sound of a fountain murmured over stone basins, mingling with the whisper of a soft evening breeze. The leaves of the trees rustled faintly, carrying a sense of continuity and life beyond the palace walls. Ehud's movements remained composed, each one deliberate and unhurried, a reflection of the careful attention that had guided him throughout the day. The gates of the palace drew near, standing tall and steady in the soft light of early evening. Ehud approached them with quiet confidence, stepping through without disturbance. The closing of the gates behind him was soft and unobtrusive, merging with a gentle cadence of the settling day. The corridors, the stone floors, and the hallways remained undisturbed, preserving the calm of the space even as he departed. Beyond the walls, the city was touched by the softness of twilight. Shadows stretched across the streets and courtyards, and the air carried the gentle hum of evening activity winding down. Ehud's journey continued steadily along the familiar paths, each step in quiet harmony with the rhythm of the land, leaving the palace behind in serene stillness, a space of calm order now undisturbed by movement or sound. The land of Israel began to breathe with a gentle, renewed calm. Fields that had long carried a quiet heaviness now swayed softly in the breeze, the tall grasses and ripening crops moving with ease and subtle rhythm. Sunlight touched the hills and valleys, bathing each slope in warmth that seemed to soothe the soil itself. Birds returned to the branches with soft songs, filling the air with quiet music that carried over villages and streams alike. Villages, once marked by tension and restraint, moved slowly back into the natural cadence of daily life. Families stepped lightly through their courtyards, tending to small gardens and carefully stacked bundles of grain. Doors opened onto sunlit streets with a sense of ease, and the faint laughter of children drifted through narrow lanes like soft echoes of hope. Life flowed gently, each movement deliberate and peaceful, restoring balance to homes that had known restraint for many seasons. In the towns, the soft murmur of conversation returned to the marketplaces, measured and calm. Merchants arranged their wares with steady hands, and neighbors greeted one another with quiet smiles, acknowledging the subtle relief that had settled over the land. Even the animals moved without hesitation, grazing slowly in pastures and wandering lanes with the ease of long familiarity. The rhythm of ordinary life unfolded naturally, soft and unhurried, carrying the people gently into a renewed sense of harmony. The hills and valleys themselves seemed to exhale, a gentle quiet spreading across the land. Streams glistened in the sun, reflecting the sky with peaceful clarity, while the wind stirred the olive trees and tall grasses in slow, comforting patterns. Every element of the countryside, the stones of the paths, the soft soil underfoot, the gentle rustle of leaves, participated in this quiet restoration, offering a sense of calm that touched both the body and the spirit. Homes were open once more to the warmth of sunlight, each hearth and courtyard filled with soft activity and gentle sounds. Families moved with intention and ease, preparing meals, tending animals, and sharing small moments of conversation. The air carried a sense of balance, a rhythm returning after a long stillness, a reassurance that the land itself had found space to relax and recover. Peace settled gradually, not as a loud proclamation, but as a quiet and steady unfolding. The people, the fields, the villages, and the hills all reflected the gentle harmony of freedom restored. Life returned to its natural pace, soft, calm, and measured, leaving the land of Israel balanced, serene, and quietly renewed. In the gentle quiet that settled over the land, there was space to reflect on the subtle ways in which courage and obedience can guide the course of life. Actions taken with careful thought, aligned with purpose and faith, often move more deeply than the loudest gestures. Even the smallest, hidden acts carry weight, their effects spreading quietly through the rhythms of time. Ehud's careful preparation, his measured steps, and his calm attention to God's guidance remind us that true courage is often quiet. It does not demand notice or applause. Instead, it moves with patience, thoughtfulness, and trust, shaping the future in ways that are steady and enduring. The gentle unfolding of events shows that bravery is not always loud, but can be found in deliberate obedience and in the mindful alignment of heart and action. The land, now breathing freely, reflects the outcome of faith lived quietly. Fields sway with ease, villages hum softly with life, and the people move with a renewed sense of balance and calm. Each element of the restored world whispers the value of listening, trusting, and moving gently according to what is just and guided. It is a reminder that even when acts seem small or unseen, their impact can be profound, influencing history and hearts alike. In this soft reflection, the quiet guidance of God becomes clear, present in the patience, preparation, and thoughtful actions of those who follow faithfully. Obedience, courage, and attentiveness, even in the smallest gestures, are powerful forces for renewal and change. And so the story rests gently in the awareness that careful, quiet faith can shape the world with enduring grace and calm certainty. The land now rests under the soft embrace of evening, hills and valleys settling into the gentle quiet of night. The air is calm, carrying the faint rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of streams, a lullaby woven by the earth itself. Homes are still, and fields sway softly in the breeze, all moving in harmony with the slow rhythm of nightfall. In this serene moment, allow your thoughts to drift gently, releasing the busyness of the day. Let calm assurance fill each breath, and imagine the peaceful land of Israel resting under a sky softly touched by twilight. Every gentle sound, every quiet shadow, carries the weight of reassurance, creating space for stillness and ease. May the quiet lessons of courage, obedience, and careful attention remain as a gentle whisper in the mind, a reminder that even small, mindful actions can bring meaningful change. If you enjoyed this peaceful story, consider sharing it with others, leaving a comment, or subscribing for more calm Bible stories that guide the mind into rest. Let the soft rhythm of the land and the gentle unfolding of these ancient moments carry you into a night of quiet and restorative sleep.